Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm going to be doing another recap and review of American Horror Story Season 8, Apocalypse. This week episode 3 aired and it is called Forbidden Fruit. So the past 2 weeks I've also done a recap and review. I'll make sure I link them up and down below in case you want to hear my thoughts on the previous weeks. But for now I'm just going to get stuck into this week's recap. So this episode began with Timothy thanking Michael for saving him from his execution. And he also seemed to do the same for Gallant, because Gallant was saying he killed his nana, but Michael said no, she died peacefully in her sleep. I point out as well, at this point in the episode, it was kind of jumping around a lot between all of the different characters, or most of them, in the bunker talking with Michael, doing the little interviews for the sanctuary, or cooperating, I think they called it. Almost everyone was shown doing this except for Emily. When Michael was talking with Mallory, he said he sensed she really hated Coco and wanted to kill her. And Mallory did deny this, whereas in Coco's session, it's very clear she didn't like Mallory very much. When it came to Dinah's turn, it's clear she knew Michael, although I'm not sure in what capacity. They did have an exchange where either one of them said that they didn't think she was powerful enough to stop him, so that's a very interesting thing to say, and I'm very keen to see what happens in the coming episodes between those two. Also, I noted something down, although I wasn't very specific. One of them, I think it was Dinah's son, asked Michael what kind of souls he wanted in the sanctuary, and he questioned if they were evil. Michael answered this by saying he pretty much wanted a new world with different rules to how things had been in the past before all of the bombs dropped. We also saw a little bit more of Mallory and Michael's interview, and Mallory did mention she felt at times there was another person inside of her, which was also an interesting thing to take away from that conversation, but she did try to leave around that point. Michael tried to stop her and she actually threw him across the room with her mind. Michael seemed pretty shocked by this and he hopped up and kind of lunged at her. At that point his face was looking kind of demonic. I guess it was like cut up or scarred or something, and just a little bit scary, so quite different to how he normally looks. And then Mallory flared up the fireplace and shot flames all out of it and ran out of the room. After this, Michael does a blood ritual and he's talking to his father about how he thought he destroyed them all, although he doesn't specify who he's talking about. I guess we can assume that's the witches. Also, I noticed there are more snakes slithering around and he drew a bloody sort of star in his own blood, or pentagram. I'm not really sure how to describe with those symbols, but he's just doing a little finger painting in his own blood with snakes slithering around him during this ritual. In another room, Ms. Mead is talking with Venable about her childhood and growing up. She's having these flashbacks. I thought it was kind of funny. She had one about dressing up as a robot on Halloween night, and there was also something else about her being an assassin or some sort of agent. I didn't quite catch what she said. She does also make a point of saying she remembers a little blonde boy who she loved and misses. But she does say she now knows that these are fake memories and she was never a child. She questions her purpose. Venable says that she can't trust Michael on who to pick for the sanctuary, and Ms. Mead suggests to just kill them all. Up above, we see the aftermath of the blasts. We see a person scavenging a cigarette from a dead, or I think it was a dying person. And there's also a group of men who are cooking a human leg over a fire, just rotisserie style. At this point, Brock, from episode 1, he was Coco's boyfriend and left behind. Just like everybody else, he's looking very affected by the blast or by the aftermath, the radiation. He approaches this group of men and says that he is looking for the gathering of rich people who have kind of fled from all the disasters. He doesn't know where it is, but he thinks they know, so he questions them. Eventually a fight breaks out and he tries shooting them and still questioning them, just thinking that they know. I think he gets interrupted after killing them by seeing another horse-drawn carriage, like the one that Michael was riding to the outpost on, and he just looks at it. Later on we see the carriage arrive at the outpost and he is holding on underneath it, so he's just ridden along there assuming that's where it would go. He climbs out from underneath and I believe he stabs someone going out to check, and I'm not exactly sure what happened from here because later on we see a box down below in the bunker that is full of apples. Venable and Ms. Mead were looking at them and discussing the fact that they think the cooperative has sent them. They also come up with a plan to get rid of everyone else in the bunker by poisoning the apples and feeding it to them. So Venable just tells all of the guests in the bunker that they're going to throw a Halloween soiree, it's a masquerade ball, they're going to dress up and just celebrate. While getting ready for the party, Coco says she thinks that the party is just an excuse on announcing who's going to the sanctuary, but Gallant says he thinks everyone who's going already knows since he's been told. She's obviously surprised since she hasn't been. Mallory asks if anything weird happened to them during their interviews or cooperating, and she also mentions what happened with the fireplace. obviously Coco and Gallant don't believe her, and Coco tries to rile her up a little bit and says, you know, do it again, show us. And obviously she can't do that, so they had a little bit of an argument and she left. Coco makes her entrance to the party and she's super dressed up. She has really top-heavy hair. It's a very elaborate hairdo and dress. Venable also comes in and says that it is All Hallows Eve, a night to remember the dead and celebrate the fact that they are not joining them just yet. And she also said to savour this night as if it were their last. So I remember seeing that in last week's promo and having a feeling something like this was about to occur. At the party, the apples are put into a bucket so they can bob for apples later on in the night, and Coco starts to dance with someone in a costume and a mask. So it looks like the same protective outfit that whichever guard was killed up above by Brock. So Brock is inside, Coco is dancing with him and seems to think that it's Michael, since Michael is not at the party. And since she wants to go to the sanctuary, she does try seducing him to try and get her spot. So they go back to her room and he takes off his mask. She is very surprised to see him and not so convincingly says that she's happy to see him, but it's very clear she's super repulsed by how he's looking, and it's very clear to him that he knows this, but he's not very happy to see her and he stabs her in the head. Meanwhile, the rest of the group begins bobbing for apples and they're all instructed to wait to eat them until all of them have their apples. And it also shows in a flashback how they poisoned the apples. I will say, I was expecting to see Michael's poison being used. They didn't do that, instead they used venom from snakes. Once they all had their apples, they were instructed to start eating them. They bite into them, happy at first, but then they all start choking and vomiting and dying. After they're all dead, Venable and Ms. Mead go to see Michael, who was in his room. He didn't attend the party. Venable says he didn't make the cut, however he says Venable passed his test. Now Venable does instruct Ms. Mead to shoot him. She just says, Ms. Mead, they had planned that she was going to shoot Michael. Now she holds up the gun and points it at Michael, however she does turn and shoot Venable. Ms. Mead is very surprised and said she was loyal to Venable, but Michael explains she was programmed to shoot her and poison the apples, and basically it was all his plan from the start. They also have kind of an emotional moment between them where Michael says that she was actually based on someone who took care of him as a little boy, so it seems like that memory that she had is actually real. Now before the episode wraps up, it shows everyone lying dead in the bunker once again, and the radio does change its station, so there's a different song playing. Up above, the gates open and we see three witches walk in. It is Cordelia, Madison and Myrtle. When they descend down into the bunker, Cordelia says, find our sisters. They find and move Mallory, Coco and Dinah to the center of the room where Cordelia brings all of them back. As Mallory is brought back, she's seeing through her glasses everything quite blurry. She takes them off and sees them clearly, so I guess by being resurrected, that has been healed. She has good eyesight again, and Madison bobs down in front of her and says her famous line, surprise bitch, I bet you thought you'd seen the last of me. And it really does seem as though they had known each other from before. And that's where the episode ended. So I guess a lot happened in this episode, and I'm really interested to see where it takes off from here. Of course, the witches are back, which I've really been waiting for, as with everybody else I'm sure, since the start of the season. And at this point it also seems like bulk of the people in the outpost are gone, and none of them have been brought back except for the three that the witches had resurrected. So unless they get into some sort of time travel thing, or just through flashbacks, maybe that is the last of everybody that we've seen in the bunker, barring of course Michael and Ms. Mead. There are a couple of theories that I'm wondering about, and I've also had a brief read online. It seems like other people are wondering about this as well. It definitely seems like Mallory and Madison know each other, although we don't really know in what capacity. I've heard people suggest that they're sisters, but I don't know if that's just because they have similar sounding names. I feel like if anything, I'm leaning more towards the fact that maybe Mallory was a personal assistant for Madison back when she was an actress. I feel like that would make the most sense. Another theory that I have read is the fact that people seem to think that there is literally someone else inside Mallory, potentially Zoe, or maybe the three witches who are resurrected are all three witches from the previous coven. But I don't really believe that theory. I think it would be a little bit disappointing if that's actually the case. I'd be very surprised if it is. I think people said that they think, I don't even know who they think is in Coco, but they think Zoe might be Mallory and that Dinah must really be Queenie, but like I said, I don't really believe that at all. I think it is far more likely that they are genuine witches, just like the others, and either they didn't know or perhaps they did and had their memories wiped. I think given the fact that the witches are back now and that they've resurrected other people inside the bunker, it is highly likely that there will be some element of trying to turn back time to reverse the apocalypse or prevent it. All of this witchy stuff does make me think back to the season trailer where it shows Michael making snow in front of a panel of other people. So I don't know if he was doing some equivalent of the Seven Wonders, but maybe he has been known as a male witch in the past, and perhaps he does know the witches. It definitely seems as though they'll have some backstory there, and of course he knows Dinah, so I don't know how. Maybe she was aware she was a witch, maybe that's how she gained popularity as a talk show host or actress. I can't remember exactly what she did. I think it was a talk show host. Maybe that was due to magic, and maybe if she is aware she's a witch, that could be how she knows Michael. I'm also really glad in this episode that they confirmed that Ms. Mead is a robot and there wasn't any sort of weird explanation. Yes, I know that's maybe strange to consider she's a robot, but I'm glad it wasn't anything else as if she was just partially robotic. The fact that she is an actual robot, I think that's really great new territory for the show. Another theory I wanted to discuss about Ms. Mead is the fact that some people are implying or thinking that Ms. Mead has been made up as Constance, the inside of Constance, but I think that is extremely unlikely, even more so than the other witches being in the 3 resurrected women's bodies, because Ms. Mead and Constance don't seem to have anything alike. The only thing that must have prompted people to think this is the fact that she remembered a little boy with blonde hair, and obviously Constance had taken him when he was a little boy with blonde hair, but I would imagine she was more so modelled after maybe a babysitter or someone who just took care of him, because obviously at the end of season 1 we saw Constance out getting her hair done and she left him alone with a babysitter or a nanny, I guess. So maybe that's what Ms. Mead was in her previous form. Perhaps she was just someone who took care of him and loved him, but I really don't think it was Constance. I'm just having a quick look at my previous video to see other theories that people had said. So other people are saying that they think the snakes coming alive was involved in resurgence, and it could be very interesting to see if the witches discuss that, if they had anything to do with the snakes. Now, another comment that I got, and I thought this was really interesting to mention, and this isn't even something I realised, so I'm glad I read this. Someone commented on my previous video that they noticed lots of time symbols on the show, and I'd noticed all sorts of other symbols and everything like that, but looking back now I noticed the time ones, but it wasn't until I saw this comment, and they said they think due to this it is sort of a hint for the fact that there might be time travel, that the witches might try to reverse the apocalypse from happening. Also, on the note of potential time travel or time reversal, I do remember seeing a photo of Madison standing at the murder house from season 1. It looked like she was standing in amongst a pile of the crushed gazebos, so I've heard people say that they think it might be she's going back to get the Montgomery's bones or skeletons for a spell. So Nora and her husband, I can't remember his name, the doctor, they were also Montgomerys, so probably relatives. I think that's a theory people have had since season 3. They noticed same surname, they must be related. Although I'm thinking she's at the house, and I would assume the house has been blown apart by now, so maybe she's gone back in time to just after the Harmons were living there. The gazebo that Ben Harmon built was crushed, but it seemed like the rest of the house was looking fine, so that definitely seems to be pre-blast. Either that or maybe it was a flashback. But that's just something interesting I noticed that was outside of obviously what we've seen on the show or also in the promos. It was just a photo that I saw online. But for now, I think that's all of the thoughts that I have on this recent episode, and theories, things that I think might happen in future episodes. So thank you for watching the video today. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, let me know in the comments down below what you think will happen in future episodes, what you thought of this episode and the season so far. I love reading and responding to your comments on the previous videos, so keep them rolling in. Also, I tried to share a few of them in this video today. Let me know if you like that and want me to share any of your opinions or thoughts, whether you're coming up with them on your own or hearing them in outside places and sharing them here. I think it's great to share all of these theories and imagine what could happen, whether it comes to pass or not. I think sometimes fan theories of certain shows are sometimes better than what writers come up with. But for now, I am going to leave it here. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye!